Hey there, I'm Eric. Today we're going to talk about vacation rentals and how hospitality plays a key role in vacation rentals and distribution and travelers and hosts having meaningful connections.
Welcome to the Rental Property Owner and Real Estate Investor Podcast, brought to you by the Rental Property Owners Association, where real estate investors have found success since 1968. I'm your host, Brian Hamrick from Hamrick Investment Group. This episode is sponsored by Green Property Management, managing everything from single-family homes to apartment complexes in the West Michigan area. Find out more at greenpropertymgt.com. And RCB and Associates, helping real estate investors and small business owners navigate the complex world of health insurance and Medicare benefits at rcbassociatesllc.com. Hello and welcome to episode 536. Short-term rentals have matured fast, but many property managers are still trying to figure out how to grow a portfolio without losing control of operations or guest experience. My guest today has been doing this work for decades. Eric Goldreyer is a hospitality entrepreneur who has helped build bedandbreakfast.com and TurnKey Vacation Rentals.com, scaling vacation rental portfolios while staying focused on performance and guest satisfaction. He also owns and operates a boutique inn, which gives him a grounded view of how strategy plays out at the property level. Today, we're talking about short-term rentals, boutique inns, and what it really takes to grow a property management portfolio as the industry continues to professionalize. Eric, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. Listening to your comments, I'm like, wow, I've been doing this a long time.
Tell us a little bit about yourself and just kind of that arc of you getting into this space.
You know, I think I was always drawn to hospitality just because it's based on, relationships. And I've always felt that was sort of the calling in life was, you measure a person by the friends they keep. I mean, the more friends you have and the more time you can spend with friends and family, the better you are. And I think recently there's all kinds of data coming out talking about longevity, life longevity, not tied to fitness and not tied to what you eat, et cetera, but tied to the number of relationships you have. And so I've always been very relational. And early on, my wife and I liked staying in bed and breakfast. We've been married 35 years. So when I say early on, this is like out of college. And bed and breakfasts were hard to find back then. This is sort of predates the internet, and you literally had to use guidebooks. And so as the internet was coming to the forefront, I thought, wow, let's create a site that makes it super simple and really easy for people to find a bed and breakfast that actually meets their needs, but also is available when they want to travel and that they can actually book it online and not have to, pick up the phone. Back then, this is when innkeepers really did all their marketing and guidebooks. So we did that. We created bedandbreakfast.com, and it was a lot of fun. We created the first CRS in the industry and distributed rates and inventory for innkeepers onto Expedia and Travelocity, et cetera. Sold it in 2010 to HomeAway. And then a couple of years later, bought the inn. It was a 12-room boutique. It was more of a bed and breakfast then, I'd say. And we've sort of turned it into a 20-room boutique hotel, but still own it. It's a lot of fun. It allows us to sort of see the back office side of hospitality, but it's highly rated and people love going out there. So that's been sort of still own it. It's been 13 years. That was 2012. 2013, launched two new companies, TurnKey, which was one that I did with a good buddy of mine, John Banzak, and also created a totally random company called Fun Air. And it was basically, we manufacture, and we still do, we're the leader globally in the space. We manufacture inflatable toys for mega yachts. So think about like a slide coming off the third or fourth level of a mega yacht going down to the water, or, off the back of the boat, a big inflatable decking area with a netted pool so people can swim and, not have to worry about jellyfish and Portuguese man of war and stuff. And it was, then we sold TurnKey to Vacasa in 2021 and still loving hospitality. I just saw what was going on in the vacation rental space, and distribution costs for vacation rental owners was going up while hotel distribution costs was coming down. And everyone seemed to be frustrated, whether it was the host or the travelers. I mean, travelers are sick of the fees, whether it's StubHub or Ticketmaster or Airbnb or Vrbo. And hosts are frustrated with, a middleman in between them and their guests. It means it's not the host's terms and conditions, it's Airbnb's. It's not their cash flow, it's Airbnb's, et cetera. And it's sort of, we feel tech should enable hospitality, not displace it. And so we set out to build Savvy, which is basically a book direct marketplace where we travelers are going to go to Airbnb and Vrbo until somebody gives them an alternative. And so we've, built a book direct marketplace. And so far we've got 150,000 listings from nearly 3,000 property managers. And travelers can go there and do discovery. And then when they find something they like and they go to book it, we fulfill it all, but they're actually booking directly with the property manager. So their phone number, email, website, all that stuff is there. And we don't prevent that communication. We sort of try to feature it, and it saves, travelers 15 to 20% per reservation. I think since we launched savvy.com a year ago, we're saving travelers $400 on average per reservation on our platform. So it allows travelers to stay an extra night or get a nicer place or bring in a chef or whatever they want to do. So all about allowing people to have more experiences with friends and family or better experiences.
You said distribution cost to travelers it's going up in the vacation rental Airbnb world, but then for hotels it's going down. And I'm not quite clear on what you meant by that.
So if you look at how hotels distributed back in the mid 90s, they used the GDSs, right? Apollo, Galileo, Sabre, much like the airlines, and it was through travel agents. And then Expedia, Travelocity came along and they moved to what was called a net rate program. So Expedia would get $100 a night room for $70, which is 30 points that the hotel's given away. And then Expedia would yield that rate up to 90 or 120 based on the demand. What's happened since then is that 30% net rate has gone down, and hotels are probably paying in the, 15, 16, 17% range for distribution. So their distribution costs have decreased. You look at vacation rentals on the other hand, and you think about, vacation rentals by owner that David Klaus launched in 1995, back when I launched bedandbreakfast.com, now obviously Vrbo and owned by Expedia. It used to be, hey, pay $25 a month and you keep all the reservations that you get. And then Airbnb comes along, and Airbnb and Vrbo moved to transaction fees. And now they're taking 15 to 20% out of every reservation. And so you went from this inexpensive marketing model to a performance-based but expensive cost per transaction. And if you think about it, through Airbnb and Vrbo, a property manager is paying that tax, if you will, on every single reservation, because Airbnb and Vrbo are doing all they can to prevent the host from knowing who the traveler is, right? As a host, as a property manager, you're no longer allowed to have a third-party app to open the door where you collect the traveler's information. You're not allowed to have you're not allowed to have them log onto the Wi-Fi and collect their email address and their name. They prevent the host from even knowing who their guest is. Similarly, Airbnb launched temporary phone numbers. They don't even want you to have the phone number of the traveler. They give the traveler a phone number that's good for 3 days. So as a host, you're paying this 18.5% tax, if you will, to Airbnb every time you get a reservation versus, for example, on Savvy, and there's other sites out there, I'm sure, when you get a reservation through us, you're actually getting the customer. We're like here. So the property manager then can add them into their contact database or CRM. And hopefully, if they do the job they should as a professional host, create a lifetime customer. So it's a customer acquisition cost versus a transaction cost per reservation.
Being in the space myself to some degree, I've really found that Airbnb, Vrbo to some extent, it's really a devil's bargain, because they're giving you access to, they're the 800-pound gorilla when it comes to booking vacation rentals, but the way they treat the owners of the properties, can be kind of abusive in a lot of ways. And everything you just said, you don't have the customer's information for your CRM. If there's a insurance issue or a booking issue, they make it's unowner friendly, more traveler friendly. So any way around that is a good thing to consider. Definitely. And let's just say this right here. If you can book directly through an owner's website, assuming there is a website, that is a preferable way, because the traveler is going to save money and the owner is not going to get taxed by Airbnb and VRBO and the others. But you brought up your company, Savvy, and let's talk about that. And I don't want this to become just a plug for Savvy, but I'd like to understand, what is the difference in your model, and how does it benefit the owner and the traveler?
The benefit so we're creating a book direct marketplace. We're not a middleman at Savvy, right? So we're aggregating all these listings and rates and availability from all these different property management software systems that property managers use, pulling it into a single database, consolidating it, standardizing it, and making it available for travelers to see. The value proposition to travelers is, you're booking with a professional host that's been vetted. So there's no gig economy listings. There's no for rent by owner properties on Savvy. If you book through Savvy, you're a Savvy traveler. And as such, you want to know that when you show up at 11 o'clock at night and you go to open the door and your family's in tow and the Bluetooth lock doesn't work, you're not trying to call your host and it's some gig economy bro who's surfing down in Costa Rica, right? There's a professional that does this for a living that's going to get their butt in a car and get over there and get you into your place in the next 10 or 15 minutes. So one of the big value props on Savvy is all of our properties are professionally hosted. The second one is just, you're not going to pay the platform fees. So your money's going to go further. You can either keep that $400 or $800 or $1,200, however much it ends up being, based upon, what a 15 to 20% savings is for what you're doing. You can either use that to travel, or you can keep it to pay your utility bill. Or instead of being in, San Diego, California, you can be beachfront in San Diego. Or instead of being in Breckenridge, Colorado, you can be slopeside. So you can upgrade and just use that money to have a better experience. So I think those are the two big things for travelers. Is your money's going to go further. You're going to know that you're getting the best book direct rate, like just as if you went to the property's own website, and it's going to be a professional host. For a property manager, they actually can do their job. They can provide hospitality, right? Let's go back to what this is all about. When you have an intermediary that prevents the host from communicating directly with the traveler, as a host, I can't find out, what do you come to town for? What would you like to see? How many people? You know what? I've got a property that's not on the platform yet, but is going to be live before you come. You're not going to find it on Airbnb and Vrbo because it's just not live, but we're onboarding them. Let me put you in that one. Let me get your groceries for you if you like. As a property manager, it's your terms and conditions, right? Savvy's not going to come in and say, we gave the money back to the traveler, because it's a direct booking. It's the traveler and the host get to communicate directly and work things out. So property managers love it because they get to communicate directly. It's their terms and conditions. It's their payment, right? When you book something on Airbnb, and let's say it's 2 months out, that host ties up their inventory. They're not getting paid until after checkout. Well, with us, it's the host's standard payment policy, because the traveler's booking directly with the host. It's just like they came from their website.
I'd like to take a moment to tell you about Green Property Management. Not only do they manage everything from single-family homes to apartment complexes in the West Michigan area, they also manage my entire portfolio. So I can tell you from personal experience that their unique flat fee management style is worth a closer look. If you feel that your property isn't operating to its fullest potential, then Green Property Management can help you take a holistic approach that will save you money, eliminate your headaches, and increase your net income. And if you're a property manager interested in applying Green Property Management's model, give them a call at 1-866-95-GREEN or visit them on the web at greenpropertymgt.com. If you're thinking of leaving your W-2 job and becoming a full-time real estate investor, one of the greatest costs you must consider is healthcare for you and your family. When I made this transition myself, I found the whole healthcare insurance process to be confusing and frustrating. That's why I'm glad I met Chad Creasy at RCB and Associates. Chad is a professional health insurance agent who helps real estate investors and small business owners understand and choose their best healthcare options. And best of all, his services are covered by the insurance company and won't cost you a dime. If you live in Michigan and are expecting a change in your healthcare insurance coverage for any reason, or losing employer coverage or transitioning into Medicare, then you owe it to yourself to contact Chad Creasy at rcbassociatesllc.com. So where does Savvy then get paid in the middle there? Like, how do you make your profit?
So we have a 5% customer acquisition fee, if you will. Again, not every, we allow them to get the customer. So ideally for 5% instead of 18.5 every reservation, they've got this new customer. And then hopefully they turn that customer into someone that comes back directly to their website and books a second time or a third time. And they're not paying us anything on that, right? We're not forcing a traveler to come back through us. And then secondly, we've got, the ability for hosts to boost, to get more exposure, very similar to, Google AdWords, et cetera. So a property manager or owner can go in and say, hey, this is, my slow season. I really need to get some more exposure. And they can throw $50 or $100 a month into their account, and the algorithm will add that into the weighting along with, their ranking and their price and how many people have viewed the listing and how often they convert, et cetera. So it just allows them to get more exposure.
It seems like you wear multiple hats. You start these businesses, and they seem to have to do with travel or air fun or, like really interesting ideas. So you're an entrepreneur, but you also own now a 12 bed, 20 room.
It's 20 keys and 25 rooms.
Boutique hotel. So talk about that, because I'm really interested in you as an entrepreneur and your thinking there and how you're applying it to actually being an operator and owner of a boutique hotel.
Full disclosure, I'm not an operator personally, right? I've got to have super smart people to run the things that I create. I just see opportunity and see needs in markets and pull teams together to deliver those. So for example, Sage Hill Inn, our boutique hotel just outside of Austin, we've got a full-time GM that runs the place and then an assistant GM underneath him. And, they have a weekly meeting. I probably make one a month of their Tuesday, managers meetings. And then I get a monthly update and I'm in communications with our GM. But the amount of time I spend on that is maybe an hour and a half a month. So own it, don't manage it, right? When you look at bedandbreakfast.com, Funair, Savvy, those are businesses where I've got to get good people in place to execute on the vision that I see to deliver the products. Because if it was up to me, they would have all failed. Yeah, so it's the old hire smarter people than yourself to do the things that you stink at, and know what you're good at and sort of stay in your lane. So where I assist with Savvy is I like the branding. I came up with Savvy and got savvy.com. I'm involved in some of the marketing, messaging, sales related stuff. That stuff's all fun to me. I've got a marketing degree. But on the engineering side, I know what product features we need, but I don't know how to deliver them.
How do you find those people who are smarter than you? And how do you know they're smarter than you? And how do you hold them accountable to make sure they're actually proving that to be true?
That's a great question. And there hasn't been a silver bullet. I would say that all of the great hires that I've been able to do have been random happenstance, knew somebody that was awesome, reached out and, connected really well about what I was setting out to do. And they wanted to come on board, and they were true to what the person that introduced me to them said. They were rock stars in what they delivered. So it was never, it's not some HR thing. It's not LinkedIn. It's not, Indeed. It's, 2, 3 degrees of separation type of thing. How do you know? I think you just intrinsically, if someone is a team play, successful people like being around successful people. And if someone on the team isn't carrying their weight and doesn't have the right attitude, it hopefully you're the first one that notices, because what you don't want is to hear from someone on your team like, hey, what's up with this person? They're just really Debbie Downer, or, they seem to have a negative attitude. And that can be cancerous in any organization, especially a small organization like, at Savvy, we're under 20 people. So it's a small but mighty team, but everybody's got to pull their weight.
When you find these people and put them in place, what's the ratio of success that you find versus like, okay, eventually you're going to have to let them go and they move on to something else?
It's not as high as I would like it to be. Realistically, it's probably 80% of the time, maybe 4 out of 5 are good and you keep, and 1 out of 5, you've got to rotate out.
That's not bad.
I mean, it could be a tad more than that. Maybe I'm blocking it out.
Let's switch gears to the boutique hotel that you purchased. I'm interested in that, like, because with my partner, we own a boutique hotel in Muskegon, Michigan, and I'm just really curious, like, what brought you to be interested in purchasing this, and how did you kind of lay the groundwork so it was successful?
When I still owned bedandbreakfast.com, back in the day, this is 1996 through 2010. The number of innkeepers that we educated on how to do internet marketing and revenue management, yield management and stuff, it was in the thousands, because you go to a conference and, you try to help educate folks. So when we still owned bedandbreakfast.com, we were like, let's buy an inn just outside of Austin and let's make it an institute, pun intended. And we'll bring people from around the country down for a week or two, and we'll bring in speakers, and, we'll let aspiring innkeepers come in and sort of take a crash course on how to run a successful bed and breakfast. Well, it just so happened that Homeway came along and bought bedandbreakfast.com from us before we had a chance to do that. But then we thought, well, wait a minute, the next the next thing could be, there's a lot of fragmentation in the industry, right? Every single bed and breakfast is independent. So the thought was, is we were going to create a joie de vivre, if you will, of bed and breakfast. So a bunch of independent bed and breakfasts that we were going to purchase and roll up under a single brand. They'll all be independently branded, but they'll be, a part of such and such group. And, consolidate all the back office stuff, the CRM, the accounting, the HR, et cetera, to find some cost savings there. And then also give people a brand that they know what they're going to get, right? I think the biggest fear in the vacation rental industry, and at the time in the bed and breakfast industry, is there's no, Hyatt or Marriott or Wyndham. So there's no brand consistency. Every single one of them is unique. So people are a little bit afraid of what are they going to get. I like to use the Starbucks example. People know what they're going to get at Starbucks, wherever they are, right? Now, we wanted them all to still be independent and unique and not all the exact same, but we wanted people to know what we stood for and that how our brand operated and whatever level it was. There's going to be robes in the room. We're going to accept Amex. We're going to have late, whatever, right? Level of service. We bought a property called Inn Above Onion Creek, and it was our first one, and it was on 88 acres, and it had 9 separate structures. And about a year into it, we were like, oh boy, this is a lot of work. I mean, then you're doing all the stuff that property managers and homeowners and hosts and innkeepers and hoteliers have to do, which is you're keeping the property running while having to market the property and keep the software up to date, and on and on and on and on. And we came up with a concept for TurnKey Vacation Rentals, and we're like, you know what? that's also a very fragmented industry. Property managers, a lot of them, they didn't go to Cornell and get a hotel management degree. They just happened to be in name your destination and knew a guy with a vacation rental that lived out of town, and they're like, hey, well, I'll manage it for you. And next thing you knew, they had 3 and then 5 and then 10 and then 20, and they didn't have any formal education. So we thought, you know what? Let's go create a national brand for vacation rentals, so travelers knew what they were going to get, because everything at the time was destination based. So if you find one you loved in Vail and now you're going to San Diego, too bad. That same property manager doesn't have properties in San Diego. So we thought, let's create a nationally branded property management company, and let's have, sort of a tech first approach. Let's do all we can to leverage tech to make operations more efficient. Whether it was, I think we were the first to do it. Now there's plenty of people that do it, but the IP sniffing to know that, there's supposed to be 4 people on this property, and I currently have 100 IP addresses pinging off of, it's like there's a party going on, or it's a decibel monitor, right? To know that there's a party going on. It's been super loud for like 2 hours. All remote locks. Housekeeping that takes the photo, and then those all get uploaded and compared at the time, back in the day, manually. And if they didn't match, then the housekeeping gets notified to go back out. Now, probably all done with AI. But yeah, we thought, okay, let's do this turnkey thing. And we just decided not to pursue the bed and breakfast inn roll up. But we kept the one that we had because it's been a lot of fun and gives us insight into it, and still love giving travelers a place to go where they can just sort of refresh and rejuvenate. I mean, Sage Hill, our property, is really about giving people a place that they can go sort of reset and be taken care of, right? It includes dinner, it includes breakfast. We don't want you to have to make a bunch of decisions while you're there. Just sort of clear the mind and be ready to hit the ground running when you leave.
You mentioned your tech stack and how you're kind of automating a lot of things. How is AI changing what you're doing and Savvy and just the whole process that you go through?
We're the most recent OTA-like site in the vacation rental space. So we've got a very modern architected tech stack. We're not going to lead in that space. We're too small to do that. We'll be a fast follower. We've got plans to, first thing we're going to do is just allow people to come to the site. I mean, we already use it internally, right? 50% of our coding is we use Claude, and our team can get a lot more done now than they used to be able to. Our sales team uses it. Our marketing team uses it for content. Our care team uses it. So we've used it internally. Outwardly, I think how it's going to first come about is when you come to the site, not having to use filters, but just being able to tell us what you're looking for. And then we'll have our own LLM, and we'll go in and we'll try to surface the properties that we think you're saying you're looking for using AI. The second one that'll also happen pretty soon is standing up an MCP server so that we can make all of our properties available to the various AI agents out there. And for now, that's probably the extent of it, is leveraging on the site for discovery, and then just leveraging it for distribution, much like you'd use Google Vacation Rentals or something.
Tell our listeners and our viewers how they can find out more about you and your company Savvy, and any company really that you want to plug.
I'm on LinkedIn. It's Eric Goldreyer. I think on LinkedIn I'm just at Goldreyer. The beauty of having a name like that is I can get I can get the handles real easy. They're not taken. And yeah, anybody feel free to reach out to me. Email is Eric, ERIC at Savvy, SAVVY.com. And yeah, if you're thinking about traveling and staying in a vacation rental, I would just say, check out the site, because we're going to show you find a property, we're going to show you what our price is, and we're going to show you what the Airbnb price is for the same property for the same dates. And if we're not less expensive, the link is right there, and we're going to take it to Airbnb so you can book it. 98% of the time, we're much less expensive. But sometimes you get property managers that upload the wrong rate structure, rate table, et cetera. And so we get notified and we go back and reach out. But I think it's a smarter way to travel, and it truly is. And the reason we have that name is it's savvy. So yeah, let us save you some money and let you have a better vacation.
And for owners, you mentioned that there's kind of a 5% customer acquisition fee. Is there any other charge to load your property up on the service?
Absolutely free for property managers to load their properties onto our site. We include on every single property listing the property manager's name and logo, a link to the website, a link to the email, to the text, to all the socials. That's another way we're different than Airbnb and Vrbo. If a traveler wants to reach out to the property manager directly, we facilitate it by showing it all. That's all free. It's only when a reservation comes through our platform that it's a 5% commission. And then they've got the option. If they want more exposure, no pressure, no need, on a monthly basis, they can bump specific properties up, but it's not like an annual contract.
SAVVY?
That's right.
What's your favorite hack, tool, or app?
I'd have to say Claude. I mean, it's crazy how good Opus 4.6 is and where it's gotten in such a short amount of time. And there's so much that you can do with it that I'm sure I'm scratching the surface. But it's allowed us to be way more efficient and productive from a professional standpoint, but then it also can do so much more from a personal standpoint.
How are you personally using it?
I've got a business decision that I need to make, and I'm having a hard time landing the plane. I can just open it up and say, okay, here's the situation. This is what we're looking at. These are the parameters. We're trying to solve for this. We want to be fair here. What's the best path forward? Okay, it gives you an answer. Great. What's the best way to communicate that in a way that people easily understand, right? Not what's the best way to communicate it, but what's the best way to communicate it in a tight message, because my 3 rules of writing: people don't read, and people don't read. So just working with it to have really some sage that you can ask things that you're trying to strategize on, and then actually create outputs, not just directional, hey, you could think about this, but no, I recommend this for these reasons. Would you like me to draft first pass of an email? Sure. Do you want me to, So it just helps you take your thoughts and boil them down literally in minutes, where it would have taken days, if not weeks, to really process through all the nuance.
What you just said, I think is very true. People don't read, they don't read, they don't read. But I also think they don't understand. They don't understand. And even you dumb it down, and you think it's clear, but it's not. So using Claude or whatever can really help just refine that message so that there's no confusion at all.
Yeah, and then that's one of the things that we're dealing with, right? I mean, we have to make sure that property managers understand that we're not Airbnb and Vrbo, right? We are different. We are a book direct, and it is your terms, and it is your payment, and it is you get the customer. Otherwise, they think that we're just another Airbnb and Vrbo, and they go in and they want to raise their rates, to cover their distribution costs. It's like, no, this isn't an every time you get a reservation thing, right? You're getting the customer. And they're not used to that.
Yeah, well, Eric, it's been a real pleasure talking with you, and thanks for coming on and talking about this vacation rental space, the OTA and the savvy, and how you're kind of changing and the model that Airbnb has laid out there. And I just really appreciate your entrepreneurial insight and everything you had to say. Thanks so much.
Thanks for having me. Really enjoyed it.
I want to thank everybody for listening to this episode. I'm your host, Brian Hamrick from Hamrick Investment Group, and you can find out more about me by going to higinvestor.com. That's higinvestor.com. This episode was sponsored by Green Property Management, managing everything from single-family homes to apartment complexes in the West Michigan area. Find out more at greenpropertymgt.com. And RCB and Associates, helping real estate investors and small business owners navigate the complex world of health insurance and Medicare benefits at rcbassociatesllc.com.
You've been listening to the Rental Property Owner and Real Estate Investor Podcast, brought to you by the Rental Property Owner Association. You can find out more at rpoaonline.org. If you enjoyed this podcast, please go to iTunes to subscribe, rate, and review.